everyone, and happy Friday. Welcome to another exciting AdvisorShares AlphaNooner. We are very excited to join and welcome a new guest, Nick Sosiak, who is the CFO of Cannara Biotech. Excited to talk a little bit about the company itself, as well as get some insight into the Canadian side of the border on all things cannabis. So before we get started, I will give everyone a reminder out there, if you are joining, one, thanks, we really appreciate it, but two, if you could give this video a like, it helps sort of elevate the cannabis conversation. And then, of course, if you have questions, we want to give you direct access and try to answer questions ourselves where possible. So feel free to put them in the chat as we go along. All that said, Nick, thanks so much for joining. Really appreciate it. Happy Friday. How is your week starting up or ending so far?
Well, firstly, Mackenzie, thank you for having me. It's been a crazy week, like every other week in cannabis. It's always go, go, go. Yeah. There's just so much opportunity, so much things to do. I love it. I'm passionate about cannabis, so every day is a fun day for me.
I like that phrase, it's go, 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 because I feel like here we always say, it's never boring in cannabis, but I feel like having that drive and more push and make it more positive is great. So I love that. That's fantastic. Well, so maybe just because it's your first time, would love to start with a little background on yourself, your role and kind of how you got into cannabis in the first place, before kind of talking about Cannara Biotech kind of generally.
Absolutely. My name's Nick Sosiak. I'm the CFO of Cannara Biotech. I've been with the company since 2019, pretty much since inception when we went public on the CSX, and then we upgraded to the TSXV under our ticker LOVE. We're also traded on the OTCQB under the ticker LOVFF. And yeah, I've been the CFO since 2019, took the company public, built it to where we are today from $0 of revenue in empty warehouse to right now 2 state-of-the-art cannabis facilities measuring over 1.6 million square feet, all built in Quebec, both about an hour away from each other. So all the cultivation assets are here. Started with the company because I am super passionate about cannabis as a consumer. For a long time, I'm a professional accountant by trade, CPA. Worked in various industries before. My last one was real estate, built condominium buildings, resort projects all around the world. But when you wake up every day and you go to work and it feels like work, that's what I wanted to change. And cannabis started legalizing in 2017. Threw my life savings literally at cannabis because I believed in the industry and I wanted to see it really grow. And and then decided that I needed to take action and go into a cannabis company to actually make it successful and see how build the industry how I envisioned it. And that's the position I am today. I'm CFO. I do the finance, accounting, IR, PR, all that fun stuff. But 80% of my other time is product innovation, marketing, R&D. I build all the brands. I give the creative direction. I create all the products. So I'm hyper involved in every aspect of the company, even operations, to planting the genetics and choosing the genetics and everything under the sun here at Cannara.
Deeply involved. Again, I feel like that passion just comes through. If you really love the plant, of course you want to get your hands into every aspect of it. And I'm sure hopefully guinea pig is also on that list. You get to try out some stuff along the way as it goes. Do you think that, you need, because I feel like there's a widespread of people who are in the cannabis industry, some who do use it themselves and some who don't. Do you think that that is a really important element, like to have a leadership position in a cannabis company, that you do need to almost be a user of cannabis?
I personally do think, because unfortunately in our industry, it's a new industry.
Yeah.
So there's no number, consultant email that you can email and have a laundry list of products that, are proven, with the formula given to you. And this is what consumers want. There's not like that, anything like that right now. We're all building it from the ground up. So yeah, the advantage of myself knowing what consumers want, product quality, understanding what cannabis quality is, setting the trends and all that, while costing the product, building the operation. So I know on both ends, I can create the product, cost the product, know that people will want it and it will be successful for the company. And I believe that's definitely a competitive advantage in where we are now. Eventually, it's going to become more mainstream and products and that knowledge is going to be built into the industry and the IP of various companies. But, for that at least 10 years, we're doing all the legwork, and the LPs in Canada are doing all the legwork in terms of innovation.
Yeah, I think definitely speaking that language is probably really important. Gives you that extra layer of insight. I'll definitely probably ask you towards the end if you have a favorite, thing that you're using right now currently. So stay tuned for that. But kind of in the meantime, I think that's translating so far into, pretty positive results. I was just looking through earlier, sort of your Q1 2025, and seemed like you guys were hitting some pretty solid revenue, cash flow, all those things. Can you talk us through a little bit, sort of where those results come from, how you've been able to deliver them, kind of high level?
Absolutely. Firstly, I just want to say, I'm super passionate. I'm leading finance and sales and marketing. We're 400 plus employees at our organization, but also at the leadership level, our CEO Zohar Krivorot, the founder, he's actually our master grower. So doesn't smoke cannabis, never partaked in cannabis, didn't have a passion for cannabis, but by building the company and seeing that there's a challenge of, again, there's no textbook or consultant you can call to grow 100,000 cannabis plants at scale at quality, right? So he understood that there's a lot of knowledge and work and experience to learn and build, and he took that on, and by taking that on, he also built a passion for growing cannabis. I call him the master chef. I give him the genetics, he grows it, we give him the product ideas, and then he delivers it on an operational basis with the team, and then we're able to execute like that. So we're really built on three pillars. It's quality, consistency, and price affordability. So we've taken that really to heart, and our product is consistent. The worst thing is having your products come out, cannabis products, and your consumer having that variability in that product. They won't trust your brand. They won't trust your product lineup. So we've always took that extremely, extremely to heart. If a lot didn't pan out, we found another alternative source for it. So it's really that hands-on experience, that passion that myself and the CEO is putting in within the organization. We bought our first facility, 625,000 square feet. We carved out 200,000 square feet of indoor cannabis cultivation. That's how we launched in cannabis. And then about 7 months later, a golden opportunity happened where the Green Organic Dutchman built a $300 million state-of-the-art, like world-class, purpose-built cannabis facility. This is the Ferrari of facilities, and built it about an hour away from Quebec, or an hour away from our facility in Quebec. And unfortunately, or fortunately for us, they had to go through a CCAA process and let go of that asset. And we acquired it for $27 million. So that's 10 cents, less than 10 cents on the dollar. That's 1 million square feet of purebred cannabis facility. And that gives us the scalability now. So we have the core pillars that we've been staying consistent. We're hunting genetics. We're coming up with these really, really good ideas that consumers want. We're building brands. We have 3 brands, Tribal, Nugs, and Orchid, all built organically from day one here in the company, from zero to we're on track for $100 million net revenue this year. And that is all built organically. And yeah, like this last quarter, we achieved $35 million of gross revenue, cannabis revenue, close to 40% gross margin, $6 million in EBITDA for the quarter, net income of $2.5 million, cash flow of $6 million, free cash flow of $5 million. So all that is happening because of our core pillars, our assets, and the execution of our team, as well as my CEO and as well as myself. We're built in Quebec. Our market share right now is around 4.1% nationally, and where 50% of our business right now is built in Quebec. We actually hold a 13% market share in Quebec. We're number 3 and about to take number 1 position. We're actually number 1 in our brand. Nugs is the number 1 selling brand in Quebec, and 50% of that revenue that we are today is coming from Quebec, and we're going to still scale that. But 50% of the revenue is coming in all the other provinces. So we still have so much to grow outside of Quebec and in addition to Quebec. And we have the assets. That 1 million square foot facility is divided into 24 rooms. And we're only on room 10 right now. And each room is 25,000 square feet. So these are like mini facilities. Yeah. It's a 25,000 square foot of pure cultivation space. So that's about like a 40,000 square footer. So we have 24 pretty much 40,000 square foot facilities bayed out all right next to each other, and we're on the 10th. We're turning on 2 this year. We're turning on 3 next year, and then we're going to get to 24 in about 2 years from now. And that's going to scale us to close to $300 million. So
that is very exciting. I can definitely see why you think things are go, go, go. It seems like it is an exciting time and there's a lot going on, a lot of growth. So that's fantastic to hear. I do want to dig more into sort of the product element that you're talking about and sort of the landscape. But first, you definitely mentioned the Quebec element. And I wanted to dig just a little bit deeper into that because I think that is kind of a differentiating factor. Would love to know, how did you guys initially start in Quebec? Was it, founders kind of in that area? Was it the market itself? What were the factors that sort of drove that decision? I know you're again expanding outside of Quebec as well, but to be so focused in Quebec.
So founders are from Quebec. 70% of our float is family offices and owners in Quebec.
Sure.
So we're, built and made for Quebec. When we did our analysis as well, we found a significant, like you said, advantage of being in Quebec that is not replicable in any province, and definitely giving us our competitive edge. Cost of utilities in Quebec is significantly cheaper. We have a development rate here in our large facility at 3.7 cents a kilowatt. And I know any outside of Quebec, if you're lucky, you're getting 8 cents, but if you're unlucky on high peak seasons, you're getting 20 to 30 cents a kilowatt. My bill right now on a monthly basis with 10 rooms is about $300,000 at 3.5 cents, 3.7 cents. So you can imagine when peak season goes up to 15 cents, how quickly that bill turns around. Cost of water. Our plants drink a liter of water a day. That's 100,000 liters of water a day. I think we're paying 30-40 grand for water a year. So that's definitely a significant advantage. Quebec is very they promote agriculture. We're really an agricultural province. So that is a significant advantage. Also in Quebec, labor costs, because of the cost of housing, we're a bit cheaper than the rest of Canada. So labor costs in general is lower than the rest of Canada. And then being built in Quebec, that's like the main asset advantage. But then from a commercial advantage, we were dealing with the SQDC. In Quebec, all the retail chains are controlled by the government. So there's no private. So you really have to, build that relationship with the government. And being, they definitely want to promote, Quebec-based companies and the business in Quebec. So definitely that's, we started in Quebec, we started catering to SQDC, and, we've been their top 3 clients since day one, and about to become their number 1 client this year. And so that's really how we started in Quebec. And there's barriers of entry for competitors to coming in. Just the French language, you have to go through the government to get approval, all in French. So there's definitely a lot of competitive advantages for other competitors to establish here. And nowadays, there's really no big facility in Quebec. There was the Hexo facility, which turned into a vegetable growing or a flower growing facility. So really, there's no big facility in Quebec other than us. And I don't foresee any, building out of a huge facility at this point in time.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting, especially I'm sure maybe Canadian listeners out there might have a sense of, Canada a little bit more in terms of how it works and functions and things like that. But, I think for most cannabis investors, you don't want to overlook the utility costs. You don't want to overlook the barriers of entry, but those are really interesting and kind of deeply important over time points. So I think that's super interesting to share. I know Quebec also, I think in terms of like its regulations and its rules seems different than some of the other provinces. I think I'd heard something more around, stricter rules in terms of like flavorings and things like that. Does that come into play at all? Is that?
Yeah, no, I completely forgot that one, but
No.
marketing, you're not allowed marketing.
How does that work then?
Yeah,
it's gonna be hard.
Exactly. The government controls all of the information to the customer. So cannot have any sales reps, cannot have any trade displays. Your packaging has to be even more basic than what's allowed on the general outside of Canada. So that actually is an advantage to us and played in our benefit, because if you succeed in your core, in your value proposition, which is who's going to complain if you can buy a product that has quality, has consistency, and has price affordability. So if you can actually, I could say it, but if you actually do it in Quebec, then you don't have to fight the external or another external condition, which is distribution and marketing and paying the retailer X amount of dollars to push your product over a product that actually customers want. So that's the advantage here in Quebec, is that we're 12.9%, 13% market share, all organically from our 3 brands. If I look at my 2 above, Tilray and Pure Sun Farms, the amount of mergers and acquisitions, and the amount of brands and amount of SKUs that make up their market share of 13.5, 13.9%, or 14% is nowhere near my 3 brands that we created from the ground up. That's just been in Quebec and been showing the test of time, that customers keep coming back to our product and buying our product over and over without us doing anything. I've spent $0 in marketing. So that tells me that if in the outside of Canada, if I can just take that product and now just beat, I only have one condition to beat now, which is distribution, sales, and marketing, I can get to a 12, 13% market share nationally. And that's the idea. And that's been the focus since pretty much last quarter, 2 quarters ago, where we're like, okay, now it's sales and marketing, go outside of Canada, get distribution, get trade displays. Up to this point, we had 2 salespeople across Canada. I had no trade. You walked into a store and you had no trade displays. You didn't, unless you heard Nugs or Tribal on our socials or from the bud tender. That's the only way you bought our product, right? So I'm pretty happy to get to a 4% market share nationally, on word of mouth. And I think now we're going to get a little bit mature, and we have all the organic asset or cultivation capacity. We're not going out to buy capacity, or how are we going to, we have to spend millions and millions of dollars. Yes, there's a CapEx cost to increase it, but it's $1 million for 25,000 square foot. So $1 million for 3,000, 4,000 kilos a year. My payback period is 2 months, right? And not even a month, my first harvest. Yeah. So for us, it's just about turning on that sales and marketing engine, focus outside of, keep doing what we're doing in Quebec. That's just going to organically grow. Vapes is completely banned from Quebec until this September 2026, January 2026. And we're like one of the number 1 vape live resin vapes across Canada. So we're going to make a huge splash in Quebec with our vapes. And we're going to continue innovating. So our market share is going to continue going in Quebec very organically. And then in the rest of Canada, we're just going to continue, doing that sales and marketing engine and opening up rooms as soon as we have that luxury of turning on demand. And as soon as demand and our supply is like this, we're able to turn on demand and then turn on supply, demand, supply, demand, supply. So we're not putting the cart before the horse. We're really doing this in lockstep, baby steps. But, this is how we're going to make our mark in the industry. And this is how, 2-3 years from now, we're going to have built an organization that has proven that quality cannabis can be scaled. And that's important. No one has ever done that. And we're going to be the first company to have proven that theory.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I would say definitely taking those would-be marketing dollars and putting them into the product or expansion and things like that, which translates ultimately into what you could say is the best marketing, which is word of mouth, like you're saying, telling other people, this is what I like, and having that kind of go a long way. But again, I think that's super interesting. Braindead is also right that I'm sure there is also talk about cannabis just generally in terms of music, or I'm sure culture as well, that kind of brings stuff as well, which is very funny. All right. So then in terms of kind of growth and where you're looking, I know that you're also launching a good amount of products coming soon. Can you talk just a little bit more about that, kind of where they are in the development process? Bless you. And kind of how things are like what you're choosing to put out based on kind of consumer demand and things like that.
Absolutely. So in cannabis, one thing that's important is that innovation and what we call pheno hunting, which is finding genetics, is the forefront of your business. The cycle of innovation is short, or the product cycle for consumers to want new products is short, and you have to be on top of that trend. So for us, we're constantly investing into finding new genetics. And finding new genetics costs a lot of money, because to find a new genetic, you have to carve out commercial rooms. Again, you can't call somebody to say, hey, give me a new genetic, and is this going to work in my facility? No, you actually have to carve out a commercial room, three commercial rooms, and grow a genetic that you don't know is going to work, and then wait 9 months, 4 months for the first harvest, and then replicate it for another time to see if it works, and then go commercial. So it's about a year before you can get a genetic. I mean, we are hunting every time we do a room. We're hunting around 100 different types of phenos, 20, 30 different genetics, and we're lucky if we find one that we want to bring to the market.
Interesting.
And that's like a $500,000 spend to find one genetic.
But the right one.
But the right one, right? And
Sure.
It's the right one that not only gives yield, gives THC, gives quality in the grow. And yield is super important for the organization. I could save costs. I'm saving costs from shipping to packaging, but nothing is going to change my cost as much as increase in yields, because that's the denominator factor that you're dividing your cost over. So if I'm dividing, if my plants are 70 grams per plant, and all of a sudden I get an average of 100 grams per plant, that's a huge jump. So that's what we're looking for. And then not only just ones that yield and THC, but the customers want the flavors. The terpene profile is something that no one's experienced before. It's from the first smoke down to the end of the joint. So there's a lot of factors that we look into the pheno hunt. And then once we find our genetic, that propels into about 20 different SKUs.
Interesting.
The way we built our product portfolio, once we find a genetic, 2 genetics, that goes into tribal. I get 5 to 7 different products under tribal. Then we can combine a genetic with another genetic, and then we get another 10 different products under nugs, from hash to vape carts to shatter to dried flower, pre-rolls, infused pre-rolls, etc. And yeah, so we're constantly doing that. And then on top of that, your genetics, and it goes into your current, you have genetics, and then that funds all your current product lineup. And then it's about finding missing products lineups that, you can add to your brands. We're launching an all-in-one for, we used to do vape carts. We're one of the best sellers in vape carts. Now we're going into the all-in-one category under tribal. So now I have a whole nother product category. I have 8 genetics under tribal. Well, that one innovation product of an all-in-one will give me 8 different SKUs that actually people want and smoke and want to consume. So it's definitely just at this point, it's finding genetics, and then really those key innovation products. We're making a hash wrap, which is a joint that's completely made out of hash, no paper, no nothing. And to get that out of the market and to the consumer's hands, intact, quality, and people want it. But it's a challenge, but we have to push that envelope. We have to figure out all the the tricks to get that to a consumer the way we make it here, because it's a very delicate product. And it's just about coming up with these new really cool products that are not on the market right now, and being the trendsetter innovator in Canada.
Yeah, definitely think it's super interesting to be so on top of it and aggressive in terms of trying to find the next thing, to try to make something that people really want and connect with. Out of curiosity, just over sort of the past 5 years or something like that, have there been any major kind of shifts in terms of what Canadian consumers are looking for? Is it, higher THC profile? Is it, a different form factor? What sort of, any sort of changes that you've seen over the past so many years?
Yeah. Our product lineup hasn't really changed from day one to where we are today, in terms of, catering to the customers' changing needs, because we like to think that we know where the customer is going to be. So we're creating products for that end consumer. So at the beginning, consumers are definitely now more THC hungry than they ever were, right? But that was always part of our pheno hunt process, right? Customers were always price conscious.
Yeah.
It gets even more and more now today, right? That was
so sort of an intensifying of trends that you've kind of seen, sort of building on what we've already seen. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. And then I guess because we're talking product right now and it makes sense. Do you have a favorite product that you've been trying, testing, anything that is sort of top of mind for you currently?
It's definitely got to be the all-in-one that we're creating under Tribal. It's using our live resin oil. So this is oil that's literally from a fresh frozen plant that we're growing. We chop it, we freeze it, we extract it. No additives, no fillers. But the all-in-one device, the technology behind the all-in-one device to get an all-in-one device that doesn't clog, that doesn't burn, no matter what the user experience is. We have a light up feature that lights up to the color of the genetics. So when you're going to have a lineup of 10 different genetics with 10 different light up features, it's going to look really cool.
Wow.
We have 3 different heat settings, which none of the all-in-ones have right now. So and just the feel of it feels very premium. So I think it's going to be a product that people are going to enjoy. And the before that was our trifecta, our tribal trifecta. This is a triple infused joint infused pre-roll. But where we differentiate, because anyone can make infused pre-rolls and triple and quadruple and infusions and all that stuff. We stayed core to what cannabis is and like the genetics. So every infused trifecta that we have starts with my genetics. So in one case, Neon Sunshine is the flower. Well, we have Neon Sunshine flower, and then we extract it in live resin. We separate the actual sauce from Neon Sunshine and the diamonds from Neon Sunshine, and then we combine that all into one flower. So you're smoking the most, if you like that genetic of Neon Sunshine, that's the most accurate, representation of the genetic, no additives. And right now it's one of the hottest selling infused pre-rolls in Ontario.
Very cool. Again, also cool name. I think that counts for something as well. I think Neon Sunshine is very cool. All right. Well, then that sounds good on the product side. I did want to just spend some time kind of talking about the Canadian market at large, getting some insight and kind of a check-in there as well, just because you are so close to it. Would love to start with sort of a high-level take on, where you see the Canadian market right now. Is it sort of still in a consolidation phase? I know you mentioned the acquisition was sort of, taking on an asset from a company that is sort of was struggling, I guess, ultimately. But what's your sort of take on kind of where we are as the market is maturing in Canada?
I think we've hit the bottom, and we're what I would call a breakthrough phase. And that's what I mean by that is, I think investors can look at the top 10 cannabis companies by market share, and they can do their due diligence on the top 10 and narrow the top 10 to 2, 3, 1 company that they can confidently say will be a major player in Canadian cannabis. It's a $7 billion market. It's not going anywhere. There's a company, 2 companies, 3 companies that are going to make good money, a good business, a successful business out of Canadian cannabis. So I think we're really at a point where it's clear for investors. Value investors should take a look at Canadian cannabis, should identify the ones that are breaking the trends, and and relook at Canadian cannabis, because it's growing. But the most important part is that there's going to be a significant shift between market share and revenues and profits between the top 10 based on the business model that each company is presenting. And for Cannara, we are 100% dedicated to Canada. We have all the licenses to ship internationally. I get phone calls every single day, messages every single day. We want your flower, because we're making international markets. The only way to source cannabis is really from Canada. So they're looking at Canada, and they're looking at who are the players and who are the ones that are getting the customers are saying, oh my God, this is good stuff. This is good stuff. So we're getting the calls, but I'm telling them no. Even if they're offering me double, triple the price that I'm getting right now in Canada, I'm saying no. And that's because that market, I'm not going to trade $1 today for, pennies later on in the future. That market is potentially the same thing that happened in Canada. It's a brand new market. We don't know if they're going to put tariffs. We don't know if they're going to start giving licenses to start cultivating within their country. think of one industry that 100% of the business within that country is 100% export. So this is short term. Will there be businesses from Canadian business that make an international splash? Absolutely, but that's risky. There's a whole journey to figure out. And for us, the Canadian play, yes, there's risk, but it's clear for us. It's clearer than ever. We have the plan, we have the assets, we have the roadmap, and it's just about execution right now. And we rather be in execution than in a dream play. This is really just like everything is laid out for us. Most of our competitors are actually moving international. So that's even beneficial for us because that gives us the opportunity in Canada to take over that market share. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're made for Canada. We're built for Canada. That's phase one. We'll become the number one brand LP in Canada. And then once again, going back to what I said before, we validated large scale quality premium cannabis. We're probably going to be the only company that's validated that. Well, that just at that point, that asset, whatever we built, will be an asset that will be valuable in international sales, will be valuable in US sales. It's about getting that first strategy done. And eventually we'll go into biopharma. We believe that cannabis has medical benefits that are yet to be unlocked. But when we have PhDs on staff, when we have all these genetics and all these THC results and COAs will be and cash flow because we're producing 100,000 kilos a year, we'll be able to get into that side of the business. So that would be our phase 3. Phase 2 is international and US potentially, but phase 1 for the next 2-3 years is 100% Canada.
Yep. So grow where you know, don't spread your focus too thin. You're really trying to put down roots and get them deep before looking kind of abroad. That makes sense. You mentioned the US. I know we are still in process of trying to get something done on the cannabis front to finally have better access here. I know we have it on a state level, but on a more of a federal level. Does that have any impact in terms of how you guys are operating? Just sort of the, neighbor down south trying to get the cannabis side figured out and straightened out finally?
Again, we are not letting any noise, crowd or skew our strategy of Canada focus. So, if they legalize tomorrow, they legalize tomorrow. Our strategy is still 2 years in Canada. If they legalize in 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, well, then we're perfectly set up for that. But I think right now, the Canadian opportunity to grow 3x from where we are profitably with 40% margins and a sustainable business, not something that's brand new and can change tomorrow. Like this will, once we've achieved that point, that will be a sustainable business, because then, be very challenging, once we're at that point for another company to build a 1.6 million square feet in Quebec to get the same advantages that we have and build brands and start competing against us in the Canadian market. So that's definitely our phase 1.
Yep. I think that's fantastic. Seems like, again, a lot of growth ahead, a lot of just sort of opportunity and a lot of work as well. But I mean, again, as you were saying before, if the work is fun and enjoyable and something you're passionate about, I think that makes it very, very easy and enjoyable. I feel like we've covered a ton. I feel like any sort of final thoughts and kind of reflections as we look ahead to the rest of 2025 for Cannara?
I would just say, like, keep looking at us. We're an execution story, so there's not going to be crazy mergers and acquisitions on our side or crazy new pivotal news stories at our point. But if you're looking for a successful long-term cannabis business, I would strongly recommend to look at look at our financials now, look at the financials in the past, look at what the management team has said in the past. We've been extremely consistent, like our product. We've never put the cart before the horse. It's always been just build, and grow. I've left so much money on the table by, again, these not selling even internationally, but also not buying cannabis from other LPs to sell under my brands. And that's super important, right? So I think we've shown, that diligence and that focus to actually get this executed and actually do what we're saying. because we're okay to leave some money on the table. Of course, we want to be profitable, and we are profitable. So that's why we're okay to say, you know what, let's put these opportunities on the side and let's just laser focus. So again, if you're looking for a Canadian opportunity, I think it's us.
That sounds good. Not looking for sort of that quick cash in the now, looking for that long-term success over the long term. That makes sense. Well, so you mentioned, staying tuned, checking out financials and everything like that. Nick, where would you point people who are listening to try to learn more, try to stay on top of, what you're doing from a company perspective, just to stay in the loop?
Absolutely. Our website, www.cannara.ca, has all the latest financials, investor presentations, and where you can follow us, as well as our socials, Instagram and X, under Cannara Biotech, as well as myself. So I'm extremely advocate on social media. You can find me under Nico Dank, NIKODANK. And yeah, I'm extremely vocal on social media, sharing, the really behind the scenes of what we do here at Cannara, the day-to-day work, and, the passion that we execute on a daily basis on all our operations and our products. So I want people to see that. I really want people to see that we're really, really working hard in the nitty-gritty of things to really build something special.
Yep. I think that's fantastic. I'm sure, a lot of people will use cannabis and see kind of the front end result in the product. But I do think being able to see, especially from an investor perspective, the behind the scenes, the work and kind of the grit that it takes to get that product through the process developed and packaged and all of that stuff, I think is super important as well. So that's fantastic. Definitely recommend, giving a follow if you are out there and want to kind of keep up to date with all things going on with Cannara. But I think that's it. Thank you so much, Nick. Really appreciate the time, especially on a Friday. I know we were talking earlier, but appreciate it. I will let you get back to work. I know it is always busy, but appreciate you taking the time. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you, Mackenzie, for having me.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We will catch you on Monday. Thanks.
Before investing, carefully consider the investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses found in the prospectus, available at AdvisorShares.com.